We are our special guest in studio, Delaware State Representative Rich Collins, and we are talking about Republican Party unity, or the lack of Republican Party unity. I have to tell you, Rich, I was in Dover on election night doing a live broadcast from there. And one of the things that struck me, and I have to be honest with you, and I'm no longer a Republican, I'm an independent now. A longtime Republican, got fed up with Republican Party politics, became an independent. I still vote Republican. But what I saw in Dover that night was a Republican Party that lacks unity. I'm a pretty hip guy, and I can kind of sense things. There is just a lack of unity in the Republican Party from Newcastle County on south. Each three counties have their own thing. We know what happened during the primary when the head of the Republican Party up in Newcastle County resigned because his guy did not win the primary. Rob Arlett won the primary, and he said not nice things about Rob Arlett at the time. And I remember saying to myself, this can't be happening in Delaware's Republican Party, but it did.
Well, again, so I remember who it was. It was Everett Moore. If I remember right, Everett in Georgetown was the last guy that actually was in a contested election for chairman. And this was back in the days when Gerald Hocker and first got elected, which I'm going to say back then it was probably about 16 years ago. To the best of my recollection, I won't swear I'm not forgetting one, but since that time there has never been a contested election for chairman because basically they've had to beg somebody who will do it. I know Duke mentioned John Sigler, and my recollection with that is that John stepped in simply because no one else was willing for a short time.
Okay.
Now, as far as what you just said, unity, I agree 100%. But you can't control what one guy does out of thousands. When you're looking at the Democrat side, they also have disunity. There is a tremendous divide between their hard progressives and the ones that I will just call your traditional liberals, and that we're going to see that play out in the General Assembly this year.
Oh, well, without question, we are in total agreement on that point.
But see, the difference between them and us in Delaware at this moment in time is there are far more Democrats than there are Republicans statewide. So that means, particularly in a statewide contest, or let's take one in Wilmington where there are 11,000 more Democrats than Republicans.
Right.
There's 11,000 more Democrats, something like only 1,500 Republicans in the whole district. So what happened this year? The Democrat who sat in that seat did something, and he got beat in a primary. So what did we get? An even more progressive Democrat to take over that district. But folks, when the numbers are as far against you as they are, and really, again, being totally honest, look at a map. Look at any map after any election, and you'll see little spots of blue, intense blue, and surrounded by giant swaths of red. Mm-hmm. The rural areas are Republican. The inner cities, the cities and the suburbs are Democrat. So in Delaware, we are totally controlled now by Philadelphia. All of Newcastle County, not all, but most of it, is basically a giant suburb of Philadelphia.
Yes,
and we are going to follow Philadelphia politics. And they have two voters for every one in Sussex County. So you're not going to, that's why the numbers are what they are. Now, one thing I want to do, and I haven't figured it out yet, I want to see what the heck Larry Hogan's doing. Governor Hogan over in Maryland.
Right.
He has had tremendous success. There have been a number of states that have Republican governors in deeply blue states, and it's always hard. I mean, it's very, very difficult to win that second term, which Hogan apparently just did. It was the first time in history, I think, for the state of Maryland. But there's got to be a way, and we need to figure out what that way is. But it's never going to be the pure conservatism that, frankly, I and most people in Sussex County would like to see. But I'll say it one more time, folks. If you want these things changed, then you are part of that solution. And if you want to do nothing else, send $10 or $20 or $30 to a favorable candidate. Maybe up if you don't want to worry about your own, because we can't, elect a Republican in Sussex County twice. Send some money up to some challenger candidate in Newcastle County. If you want advice on who it should be, let me know when we get to the point where you can do it. Those folks are absolutely starving for resources, and in some cases, it could maybe make the difference.
Let's go to the phones and welcome in our next caller on Delmarva Live with our special guest, Delaware State Representative Rich Collins. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Rich. This is Lori.
Hey, Lori, how you doing?
Okay. You know the difference in Sussex County and up there. You know, we're working like hard to keep the numbers up. That's why we're a red county.
Oh, well, you're one of the hardest workers we got. No question about that.
And as far as, and I've got other people now working with me that does this. I even had people door to door registering people.
Right.
And we've managed to keep the numbers up. They got a little low. Maybe we fell behind. But I want to tell you this: as far as the party unity goes, I've been working for 12 years to beat the opponent in the 14th district, and I'm a 6-time loser.
Well, let me tell you this: Doug Hudson won his new seat for county council overwhelmingly, but he has 4 districts in the 14th. Which is that district. He lost all 4 of those. He won all the others by big numbers, which gave him the seat by a healthy margin, but he lost every district of the 14th. That district is drawn to be as liberal as it can possibly be.
Yeah, and then as far as party unity goes and things like that, when I worked at the polls all day and this year got slammed by a storm outside, the last thing I want to do at the end of the evening is drive to Dover and then have to drive back at midnight.
Right, but I will tell you this, and I congratulate you above all. I mean, really, I will kneel down to you the next time I see you.
Oh, don't.
You are willing to continue to work like as hard as anybody I know, even though we're winning. And like Ken Towers called in a while back, said, I used to be a checker challenger. Folks, there was a time when I was a young man in the 37th district. The numbers were different back then. The 37th is kind of like the 14th is today.
Yeah.
We used to have on every election 50 or 60 people making phone calls just in that one district. Now, we lost every election because it was still a liberal district back then.
Well,
but we worked like dogs. That effort is not occurring today.
I got a Facebook message from a listener, and I'm not going to say the listener's name. I'm just going to read her message. You've interviewed Rich Collins this morning, and you discussed why Republican Party did not monitor voting at the polls. He stated there were just not enough volunteers. Personally, I find that a shallow excuse. I supported both Rob Arlett and Ron Gray, and had their sign-ups all over the front of my house. Their signs up all over the front of my house. I was asked by the Arlett campaign if I would be willing to work at one of the polls, and I said yes. No one ever contacted me with a follow-up, instruction, information, etc. I got plenty of emails from the campaign asking for money. I was more than willing to work a poll station, but never have done it prior. I expected the Arlett staff to reach out, so I did not find that we lack volunteers. Ron Gray stays in touch with me personally, and he personally dropped off the campaign signs. I also stay in touch personally with Senator Hocker. I was very disappointed that Carper won again, but I think Arlett may have blew it.
Well, Now look, again, folks, the Arlett campaign is one guy fighting an entire state. The man put thousands of miles on his car driving up and down the state. He was up against a candidate who had millions of dollars. He had, I don't even know, but, in the low, very low.
You have to understand, with regard to the Reverend Carper, people from all over the country were putting money in his coffers.
That's where his money comes from, not from Delaware.
Out of state.
It comes from all over the country.
And he was giving millions to other candidates as well from his war chest.
So Rob did not have the time. You've got to go, and on a campaign like that, folks, you've got to go and organize yourself. Let me tell you, this one district in Georgetown, one guy spent the entire day there for me. One man, the entire day. I had another guy in Dagborough. One guy, although I did have my family went, he spent almost the entire day there by himself. This is the kind of dedication some people have, but just sitting around and waiting for somebody to call you when they don't have phone, time, or resources, it's not going to work.
I love La Bamba. It was a good movie. Richie Valens, great talent. Now, I had a listener who's listening on the stream and has just sent this message, and I'm going to read it. You're probably not going to like it, Rich, but I have to, I have to throw this out there. I take offense to Representative Collins accusing the gun community for not coming out. His statement about Sussex County showing up to Legislative Hall is wrong. Delaware gun rights members spend thousands of dollars and countless hours donating time and money. I personally helped. Is it Vanderwend?
Yeah, Jesse Vanderwend.
Okay,
and he won his seat.
Dave Wilson, Ernesto Lopez, and Shoup, his statements are false. He is clearly out of touch with the gun community. Okay, your response, sir.
Well, I'm part of the gun community, but no, I think you misinterpreted what I had to say. We need you showing up at Leg Hall. Well, thank you for showing up at Leg Hall, and it was a tremendous help. But all I'm trying to tell you is that the gun banners do not live in Sussex County. They live in Newcastle County, and some of them in Kent County. So somehow we've got to figure out a way, if we want in the long run to have, in any issue, gun issue, any conservative issue there is, if we're going to have influence over time, we have got to find a way to help out the candidates that are not incumbents, who are not Republicans, the challenger candidates who are trying to take out some of these progressives. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not dissing or disrespecting the gun folks. Thank you for what you did. It was a tremendous help, but we've got to do more. That's all I'm saying.
All right, that's fine. Thank you for the clarification. Let's go to line one. Welcome in our next caller, to Delmarva Live. Caller, thanks for calling in. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good morning, Representative Collins. I was obviously AWF. I worked over at the Roxana Fire Hall morning and then came back afternoon and evening, and I was on the street, not sitting behind a table, on the street, waving signs for Rob Arlett and John Riley. And, you know, one thing about these tables is why are people just sitting there? We need to get out there on the road, on the side, and wave signs, smile at people, wave at people. And I never see anybody doing that.
Well, AWF, can I just interject something for just a second?
Yeah.
You don't know how many people have come to me since Election Day to say that they got the finger, they were cursed at by people who did not have the same political affiliations that they had. What has happened to this nation where people can't even volunteer without being verbally attacked because you do not have the same political views as someone who might be walking by or passing by going to vote?
I don't care. I smile. I smile and I take the high road because I'm representing my representatives or my politicians.
Right, and let me say,
I smile and wave anyway.
I want to thank you, and Rob did have a tremendous group of volunteers. I mean, very dedicated folks who worked really, really hard. Yes, and I congratulate you. I will say that though the sign waving and what you're talking about, this outreach, a lot of people's personality just does not align with that.
I know I guess it's hard, but you know. And another question is, I really wonder what difference it's making. Do you think that by the time people are heading to the polls and pulling in, they already know who they're going to vote for?
You know, really,
that tends to be the case, Tiffany, I think. Yes.
Yeah, about 35% of any, given assuming you don't have a totally one-sided district. If you've got a district with any balance at all, the Democrat, if you ran somebody who didn't exist, they would get 35% of the vote for their party, and somebody else like that would get 35% of the vote for their party. You're really only talking about that 30% in the middle, and then when on election day, you probably are not talking about more than 2 or 3%. If the margin is way outside of that, if you're going in, if you know that, say, 60% going in have got their minds made up, you can't possibly change enough minds to win that election.
Yeah.
All right,
AWF. The next election, the next election, I will volunteer and help people do sign waving and teach them how.
Fantastic.
There you go. Thanks, AWF. I appreciate you calling in this morning. And you know what? Perhaps we all need to consider volunteerism as a way out of this. All right, we have Marty, who's calling from Newcastle County, who wanted to speak to Representative Rich Collins. He's left, but I'm sure he's still listening in his car right now. Marty, thank you very much for calling. We appreciate your time. Go ahead, please. You're on the air.
You're welcome. Okay. I'm very disturbed at the statement he made that DGR did nothing at Legislative Hall and that only Sussex County showed up. Well, first of all, everybody in the state means something. What is his problem even making a statement like that? And the people from Newcastle County were there in mass. So that is a wrong statement, a not true statement. And, you know, he should get his facts straight. After all, he is in our government. He works for all the people, not just some. So he needs to check his facts before he goes on.
Marty, I was up in Dover interviewing people who were there for the gun rallies. And one of the things that I have to tell you that surprised me, I interviewed several African Americans from Wilmington who you would have thought would have been pro gun control. They were the exact opposite. They felt that, it was within their right, based on the Delaware Constitution and the Second Amendment, to bear arms to be able to protect themselves in an area which obviously is a high crime area. And I was very surprised by that. That
Yes.
really shocked me. It really did, Marty.
Well, the reason is they are tired of the wrong people having the guns and their lives being threatened.
Yeah, I understand.
It's very bad in Wilmington. We are one of the murder capitals in the country. Do people get that, or are their heads in the sand?
Well, the Democrats think if they take your guns, the Democrats take your guns away, that all the murder in Wilmington will simply go away. And we know, Marty, that that's simply not the case.
That is not true. They take our guns away from all of us, the whole country. We will not be able to defend ourselves from them. People better wake up. These people that are anti-gun do not understand the ramifications of what they are asking. A government, let me get this straight, a government that fears its people is free. A people that fear its government, or it's tyranny.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
We face, I've done this a long time, and I've been on radio, I've been on television for other matters in the past. Mm-hmm. And we face a terrible threat in this country. We face a threat of losing everything. I'm related, and it's documented. And I have a revolution gene, I'm afraid. I'm related to 6 presidents: Benjamin Franklin, Samuel Adams. It's my legacy. It's all of our legacies. Don't take our legacy away from us. How dare these people want to destroy our republic? They have no rights. They do not get it. They are brainwashed or stupid. I can't figure out which. Well, I'm sorry, I'm very passionate.
Marty, obviously your passion is well stated, and I agree with you. I agree with you in that these people are coming after everything that we know as good in this country. Remember, they don't honor the Constitution. The swamp.
Correct. I'll tell you what Carney told me.
In the Reverend, we call him the Reverend Carper down here because he is the Pope for the religion of climate change. But go ahead.
Okay, let me tell you what Carney told me, face to face, eye to eye, at a meeting. I said, John, you lied to me once. I said, look me in the eye and tell me what you think about the Constitution. He kind of couldn't look me in the eye, but that's beside the point. He said, well, I think it could be tweaked a little. I said, look, John, it has no expiration date. I said, another thing, John. He said, well, Marty, I took an oath to uphold it. I said, you are doing a terrible job. If they had their way, they will take everything from us. He sold the ports from out to a company he shouldn't have. That's a whole other topic.
Well,
but
you know what?
We keep letting them take our freedoms away. We're going to be socialist or worse.
Well, I thought you said Carper, so I apologize. We call him the Reverend Carper.
Carney.
You were talking about Governor Carney. I understand. All right, listen, Marty, I got to run. I have a promotional event that I have to get to now. But please call us next Tuesday when Rich Collins is back in studio with us. All right?
Well, I would love to.
And don't lose any of your passion. Whatever you do.
Thank you.
All right, Marty. Thank you. That's
a revolution gene or something.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Thank you, Marty. That's Marty from Newcastle County, who was upset at something that Delaware State Representative Rich Collins said. But, she's concerned about the future of the state and the nation. Delaware State Representative Rich Collins was, in fact, listening, is on the phone. And go ahead, Rich. I think Marty, who called in from Newcastle County, what she was concerned with was your statement with respect to Sussex County being the ones who went to Legislative Hall with respect to protest against the proposed gun legislation last year. One thing is pretty obvious, Rich. This state is as divided as this nation is. Anything that occurs, people are on edge. They really are.
They are, and rightfully so. And I want to make clear in terms of her general statement, I agree with it basically 100%. I agree with everything she said. I guess I did not make myself clear. I wasn't criticizing anybody in the gun movement. I'm simply saying that, let me put it this way. Politicians know who their voters are. They know there are some people who will vote for them and some who are going to vote against them. Now, in my case, I know that in my district, gun owners, those who respect gun rights, are going to vote for me. Now, I do it anyway. I got an A+ rating with the NRA. I have passionately believed in firearm rights all my life. So I'm there because I agree with them, but I don't agree with them because they vote for me. That's just me. But up in Newcastle County, most of those legislators know that the majority of those people, the majority, not all, are not passionate about gun rights. So they believe that they can vote against gun rights. Look at Senator Townsend. There are any number of them. You can see them doing that because they know there aren't enough of those of us who believe in gun rights to take them out of office. They think they're making more people happy by doing what they do. So all I'm simply saying is when you go to the Leg Hall, which please do, it is very, very helpful. We need that to happen. But if they realize that most of their voters are not there protesting for gun rights and that their election is not at risk over the issue, then the protests over certain legislators, for example, one in Wilmington with 11,000 more Democrats than Republicans, that doesn't influence their behavior. The only way to really protect our gun rights, in addition to going to Leg Hall and doing what you did, is trying to elect at least one or two more pro-gun senators. I said pro-gun. I didn't say necessarily Republican, because there are a couple Democrats who are really, really strong on gun rights. So that's all I'm trying to say. I'm trying to give people the facts as what works and what doesn't. You can imagine in California, where they've lost just about all their gun rights, that there are surely people every bit as passionate as the lady who just called in that didn't keep them from losing their gun rights. We got to figure out other ways besides just going to Leg Hall that to try and do it. And of course, part of that's going to have to be lawsuits to defend the state constitution.
All right. Thank you, Rich, for clarifying that. And I have a feeling Marty is going to give us a call next Tuesday when you're back in studio with me.
I hope she does. I would love to talk to her.
Right,
okay.
Rich. Thanks, Rich. Thanks for calling in to clarify. We appreciate that. That's Delaware State Representative Rich Collins, who was calling in to clarify his statements. And I know that several from Delaware Gun Rights, associated with Delaware Gun Rights, have gotten in touch with me as well. But you can, of course, give us a call if you would like to discuss that further here on Delmarva Live 92.7 WGMD, WGMD.com, and via your WGMD app. You're listening to Delmarva Live on 92.7 WGMD, WGMD.com, and via your WGMD app. It's 11:27 on your Tuesday morning. We'll be checking in with Duke Brooks again in just a couple of moments. And let's go to our special phone line and welcome in Mitch Denham from Delaware Gun Rights, who wants to opine on the sudden topic this morning. Mitch, I believe that's you, right?
Hi, how you doing, Jake?
All right. Good to see you. When we talked last week at Return Day, I didn't think we'd be talking so quickly, but situation seems to have dictated otherwise.
Yes, sir. I think that I was a little upset earlier with Mr. Collins and his speak about how the gun community didn't come out or doesn't come out or whatever. And the reality of the world is that I think that maybe he just doesn't see who's coming from Newcastle County. Our statistics from our site show that more than 60% of our users are from north of Dover.
Wow.
So to say that that the gun rights community that shows up to Legislative Hall is mostly from Sussex County is not factual. Most of the time, the people that do show up are coming from north of Dover. And the reason I believe that to be true is because we have representation. We have elected officials that represent our values, such as Mr. Collins, and that those folks up there don't have that representation. So they feel like they have to show up.
I see.
So I think that that's the problem. Is I think that he has a uninformed view of the folks that are coming. And what I'm going to do is when the next time we go out, which is going to be January 15th, we're going to go to Legislative Hall. I'm going to ask the Newcastle County members of Delaware Gun Rights to stop by Mr. Collins' office and let him know that it's Newcastle County that's showing up to, and it's that Kent County showing up to, so that he actually has a good view of what kind of folks are coming out. Most of the people that sent in emails to the representatives and stuff like that, the ones that got the most emails were the representatives and senators in Newcastle County. Mm-hmm. And it was a large number of people in their district. So I think that, his view is his view, but the reality is something completely different. And as far as candidates and getting out and backing people, we spent a ton of money on Greg Lavelle. We spent a ton of time on Greg Lavelle. Mm-hmm. We have volunteer after volunteer after volunteer out to help Greg Lavelle. He covered his district multiple times with Delaware Gun Rights and DSSA volunteers. And that's a true story. And the reality is that maybe he doesn't see that from down here in Sussex County, but we're out participating. We had 4 different county candidates that we were backing north of the canal that we helped get into the races they were in, mm-hmm. and one south of the canal with Dan Satowski being going after Quinn. So it was kind of one of those things where maybe he didn't see what we were doing because he's down here doing his thing.
Right.
But the reality of the world is that we're a statewide organization doing statewide things. And we did a lot of stuff to help these candidates, and it's kind of I know he probably didn't intend it as such, but it's kind of a little bit of a smack in the face to us to make statements like that.
Mitch, let me ask you a question, Mitch. What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of those who support Delaware gun rights in the first state? Is it that people in Newcastle County, by far and large, do not support gun rights, or they do? What do you think is the biggest misunderstanding that all of us have with respect to the support for Delaware gun rights in the first state?
I think a lot of folks think that it's just a bunch of hillbillies from Sussex County. I think that that's the thought process, but it couldn't be further from the truth. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have folks that work in the government, we have folks that work in the military, we have people that are firefighters, we have people that are police officers, we have probation and parole officers. We have we represent the state of Delaware, from the guy that sweeps the floors all the way up to the highest paid attorney in Delaware. We have members of all levels of the community. And I think that the visual or the optics are that, that we are, just a bunch of mad Sussex Countyans that just, don't want the North to, come into our area.
Right.
The reality could be further from the truth based on the statistics of the site. So I think that maybe, we're, like I said, we're going to send people out to talk to Mr. Collins and let him know that it's not just people from Sussex County showing up. It's Newcastle County and showing up. It's Kent County and showing up. And, we're going to do our best to keep the strong momentum that we had from last session moving forward into this session, and do our best to be as peaceful and level-headed and respectful as we can. We originally were planning on coming out on January 8th.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that isn't a good idea. I mean, it's a bad idea. It's a ceremonial day, and it would be like someone your next door neighbor coming over to your birthday party and demanding that you trim your tree.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, my only point that really I wanted to make this morning to Marty when she called in was that when I was interviewing Delaware gun rights supporters up in Dover in March, the thing that blew me away, Mitch, was the number of African Americans from Wilmington who were there in support of Delaware gun rights. That blew me away. Absolutely blew me away.
I mean, it's like I said, we represent Delaware. We're not just it's not the good old boy club. It's everybody that wants to be a member can be a member. We charge nothing, not $1 to be a member.
All right, Mitch Denham, Delaware gun rights. I've got to hop, but Mitch, thanks for calling in, and we will get more in depth in this topic with you in the near future. I promise.
Awesome, Jake. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure, sir. Thanks for calling in. That's Mitch Denham, Delaware gun rights, who called in this morning, wanted to just touch base with all of us with respect to what he sees as the issues in trying to protect our gun rights and how gun support is not just